Okay. So can you see my screen now? Please type in the chat box.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, today we review on L4M3. As you know, this is a module in level 4 diploma in procurement and supply, and it is an OR module, which means you will have an exam on multiple choice with multiple choice questions. There will be 60 questions in the exam, and you will have 90 minutes to finish it. Normally, because our exam has many questions, and we only need to select, then the question tend to be spread evenly over the whole study guide. And as I often advise the students that our exam often has no focus area, but it has some errors that are very commonly asked in the exam. Please turn off your mic before attending. All right. As I said, our exam has many questions, so often the questions spread evenly over the whole study guide, and sometimes you will meet some questions that do not come from the book. In this session, I will help you to identify the common common errors that can be appear in the exam, and how to address some our study guide questions, and what you need to read before taking the exam beside the study guide, official study guide. All right.
Yes.
First thing, please turn off your mic. First, I want to introduce about the structure of L4M3. As you know, it has 3 chapters, and each chapter has its own focus. Chapter 1 is about contracting, about the formation of contract, and other issues like the use of types of agreement, like framework agreement or one-off contract. Chapter 2 focus more specifically on specification, KPI and SLA. This topic is more familiar to procurement professional. And the final chapter, the focus is on the terms in contract, the very specific terms in contract, and the use of other things like pricing arrangement or the use of modern form contract. Okay, so we start with chapter 1. In chapter 1, as I said, the focus is on how the contract is formed legally, and they also mentioned some other aspect of contract, like the type of agreement being used in procurement and supply. And furthermore, there was very small topic on misrepresentation, when the contract can be void. In chapter 1, here are the topics that you need to study and remember. In each topic, I will introduce some time questions, and how do you answer them in the exam. Okay, first about offer acceptance. This topic is very familiar to you if you have read the book. It stay right in the chapter in the part 1.2. Offer acceptance has kind of quite many questions in the exam, and the most common and the most notable type question here is about how to distinguish between offer and invitation to treat. To remind you that in this class, I don't present again the lesson from the book, but I just explain some errors that need more focus. Okay, let's come back to the our session. The first topic you need to notice is about the difference between offer and invitation to treat. Actually, you don't need to remember every cases in the study guide, but at least try to remember a few cases like the display of goods on the shelf, or whether IFQ or ITT are offers or invitation to treat, and whether an advertisement on TV or on other type of media is an offer or invitation to treat. The question regarding these errors tend to be a scenario and ask you whether the contract is formed. For example, I remember that a question on a buyer who walked through a shop, and she found a dress which has a price tag. Then she asked the shopkeeper to sell her that dress with such a price, and whether after that action a contract is formed. Could you answer that? I will present again. A buyer walk through a shop window and she saw a dress with price tag. She asked the shop to sell that dress. So the question is the contract formed? Okay, if we stop here, then whether the contract is formed. Can you write your answer in the chat box? Okay, I wait for more answer. Sorry, I want to avoid the noise, so please don't turn on your mic. Please try to write your answer in the chat. Okay, thank you very much. I see many of you say there is no, yeah. Okay, I see someone raise his hand. Okay, Chikondi, what is your answer, or what is your opinion? Hello. Okay, let's come back. I see that most of you have the answer is no. Then I see there a person who is Ivy saying yes, there is a contract. Ivy, could you explain your answer? Hello? Hello, Chikoni.
Okay, sorry, I was in the elevator. So I said yes, because remember in the study guide, there's a part where it tells you that a contract is formed, I think, when you invite them to treat, like an advert or you putting something on display can be considered an invitation to treat. That's why I said yes.
Yes. Well, come back again to, we need to come back again into the formation contract. And we know that the contract is formed when there is an offer and there is an acceptance. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If there is only an invitation to treat and there is an acceptance, sorry, there is no there can be no acceptance there. If there is an invitation to treat, then even the other party agree, but then no contract is formed. We only have invitation to treat. Then come back here. Come back to this example. You are right. Display of goods on a shop window is not an offer; it's an invitation to treat. And this buyer only when she come to the shop, or she only asks the shopkeeper to sell her, then this action, her action here is her action here is an offer, but the shopkeeper has not yet answered according to this to these words. So currently at this point there is no contract. And the shopkeeper is entitled, he is entitled to reject or accept that request from the customer.
Okay, I understand now.
Okay. Thank you very much. So that is a type of question that you may see in the exam. Then we have other section, other topics regarding this areas that can be asked, like what factors will terminate an offer, or which factor is needed, which factors are needed to have an valid acceptance, a valid acceptance. And regarding memo rules, sorry, I haven't seen any question on memo rule, but you should know about this rule, because in the exam we are taking exam in UK based institution, then they prefer to use English law. Okay, about termination offer or the condition of acceptance, then I think that you can come back to your study guide and review. Those factors are very straightforward, and the only thing you need to do is trying to understand and remember them. And And the next topic in this chapter is about Vienna Convention. Vienna Convention in international sale of goods. Or in short, it can be called Vienna Convention or just CISG or Vienna Convention. Do you remember this international statute? Anyone has memory or remember this international document?
Sorry, I'm not really sure if my answer will be correct, but the Vienna Convention on International Sale of Goods is basically like it guides different countries on which law they use in terms of their contracts. So they all have these countries that are in the Vienna Convention. They all use the same contractual terms when they're entering contract with each other, or if a country is not part of the CISG, they follow the laws of the Vienna Convention.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ivy, for your answer. You are very interactive in this class. Thank you for that. And thank you. And I want to, your answer has some correct aspect, but I need to I need to correct your answer for more precise.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's come to another slide. Okay. You know that when we contract internationally, such as I purchase something from China, or you purchase something from your neighbor country, from South Africa, from Botswana, from Malawi, or from Nigeria, or from Kenya. Then if you sign a contract internationally, then the question is which legislation or which law will govern those contracts? As a rule, then the parties has the right to select the law governing their contract. But the problem is if they have the right to select, then the law will vary and international trade will be impeded. So Vienna Convention is an effort to harmonize. The rule regarding international trade. And according to this convention, it will apply to the parties who comes from the countries which is a member of this convention. And currently, Vienna Convention has more than 100. I don't remember the exact number, but about 100 or 120 members. So currently, if these if the companies from these countries sign contract with each other, then Vienna Convention will be applied, and it will harmonize the difference of law between different countries. So as a buyer, you may purchase from overseas, and you should know a bit about this convention, because you may have to use it as the law governing your contract. But in the exam, CIPS tends to not ask very complex question on Vienna Convention. They don't ask you about the content of this convention. They only ask about the purpose and the subject of Vienna Convention. And just remember that Vienna Convention is an effort to harmonize the difference of law in international trade. And it has the purpose to facilitate the flow of goods internationally. Okay, this topic is very simple in kind of question. Okay. Okay, let's come back to the original in the opening of the chapter. In this chapter, we have many different topics, including offer acceptance, Vienna Convention, and there are topics that I don't make a slide later because it has very few questions in the exam. For example, we have question on ITT and RFQ, like when do you use ITT or RFQ, or whether using ITT or RFQ here in this scenario will be appropriate. I think that the question will be very easy for you, because we know that tender and quotation has different use. Like tender tend to be used with bigger purchase, and RFQ or quotation should be used with small purchase or purchase in urgency. And in the better the form, they tend to ask very simple question like what is the result of exchanging of standard form, something like that. The answer is about the better the form. In this revision class, I'm trying to convey the most important part of the not only the most important part, but I'm trying to convey the most important and the hardest part of the study guide, so that you can understand and continue your study. Okay, let's come back. I have just said about IT, IQ, and the battle of the form. Very small but pretty hard topic of this chapter is, and it's about misrepresentation. Okay, misrepresentation is an action or a statement that you conduct, that a party conduct, and it induces the other party into the contract. And you can say something that the misrepresenter, the one who make misrepresentation, is kind of fraudulent. He's kind of swindler. Yeah, if he has bad intention, then he will be a swindler. And in short, misrepresentation is something that untrue but induce the other party into the contract. The rule regarding misrepresentation is kind of quite complex, and because you are not any lawyer, so you don't need to remember all of them. But in the study guide and also in the exam, they still have questions on this topic. And the question tend to focus on only two aspects. The first is the attributes, or what factors are needed to form a misrepresentation. And the second type question will ask about the consequences of misrepresentation. As I said earlier, misrepresentation must have at least three factors, must satisfy at least three conditions, as I list here. And if a party realizes that he has been induced unfairly into a contract, then he must address this issue. He should sue the other party to a competent court. And if the court finds that the real party who has made misrepresentation, then the other party will entitled to two remedies. I will say that, or here is remedies for misrepresentation. The first remedy is rescission of contract. As a word, the contract will be void. The contract has no effect at all. And the second remedy is that if the innocent party has suffered some kind of loss, then he will be entitled to damage, and that damage must be paid by the party who made misrepresentation. Okay, that's all about misrepresentation. A very important part of chapter 1 is on the type of agreement that can be used in procurement and supply. In the study guide, they list more than 3, but here I only take 3 type of agreement that is very common and can be asked during the exam. We have on-off contract, framework agreement, and also long-term or co-op agreement. And finally, we have hire purchase. I think that I don't need to talk again about the definition or the features of each type of agreement. For example, you should remember that framework agreement has no legal standing, or it has no legal binding, but the co-op under an agreement, under a framework agreement, has such effect. The question here tend to focus on when each agreement would fit, when would each agreement fit into a scenario, or they give you a scenario and ask you which type of agreement will be the best. For example, for one of contract, they ask you that which of the following scenario would, or which of the following category would be the best suited for one contract. And as you know, one contract tend to we often use one contract for short-term benefits, and on the other hand, we often use on a contract for capital purchase, capital assets, like buying new machinery or setting up new plant, or by new IT system. Similarly, framework agreement also has such question. For example, they give you a scenario, or they give you they ask you that which of the following category would be best suited for, would be suitable for a framework agreement. Other type question would be they give you a scenario such as we don't they give you a scenario that the buyer are not sure about when they need the when exactly they need such product or service. Then they ask you which type of agreement or which type of contract would be appropriate for that scenario. And secondly, under framework agreement, we also have co-ops, which is we ask the supplier under that framework to supply us. And in the exam, they can ask you something like we have a framework agreement, and under that the buyer call a supplier, then would that be appropriate without going into mini competition or something like that? So regarding to a co-op under framework agreement, we have two types. The first one is direct co-op, and second one is mini competition. What is the difference? Under direct co-op, you can appoint randomly any supplier that you want to supply, you want to work with. And under mini competition, rather than directly appoint anyone, you need to open a small tendering and ask the suppliers to submit their price before you decide. So that is the use of each type co-op. And finally, to hire purchase agreement. It has only one or two questions, but it often a very long scenario. And the question is, who would be the rightful owner of the assets regarding that scenario? And please keep in mind that in hire purchase is a way to financing an asset. Like you want to buy a house, but you don't have enough money to direct purchase. Then you will hire it first. Then you will sign a hire purchase agreement in which you pay a monthly installment until all the value of the house is paid. And in hire purchase agreement, the buyer or the hire purchaser only become the rightful owner when he pays all the due. He has made all the due payment. Or he get the price in full. So remember this point, then you can decide who would be the owner of the asset. Okay, that's all for chapter 1. You see that chapter 1 is not very complex, but it's very kind of quite legal. And remember that chapter 1 is still easier than chapter 3. Chapter 3 is very legal, and they have many questions out of the book. So be careful with chapter 3. But before that, we need to go through chapter 2. And most of chapter 2 is very straightforward and simple for you. But during the exam, they tend to ask the application of specification, KPIs, and SLA. Okay, let's continue. Regarding specification, we know that from L4M2, we know that there are two major types of specification, conformance and performance. And again, in L4M3 exam, they also ask about conformance and performance with some type question like the buyer one innovation, then they need to use which type of specification, or what would be which of the following information would be embedded into conformance or performance specification. I believe that this type of question is very familiar to you if you have attended L4M2 exam. And on the other hand, there are other questions on the use of standards, like they ask you some kind of ISO standard like ISO 9001 or ISO 14001 and their application. Or they ask you about the advantage of using international standard in international sourcing. Or they ask you the benefits of using standard generally, or they ask you the benefit of using standard within a specification. And finally, there are a few questions on standardization, like asking about the benefits of standardization. You can see all of these answer in the study guide in chapter 2. It's very straightforward and quite easy to remember. Normally, students often gain points from this part because it's very close to their job. KPI and SLA is limited. If KPI and SLA are briefly mentioned in the book, the page for KPIs and SLA is quite short, but they have extensively many questions in the exam. The question often doesn't ask purely about the theory about KPI and SLA. They often give you scenario. There are many types of questions here. They can give you a scenario and ask you which KPI should be applied here. Or they ask you, let me remember again. They give you a scenario and some given KPI, and they ask you that whether those KPIs are appropriate. Or sometimes in other questions, they may ask you about the give you some scenario, and the buyer is using SLA, then which information should be embedded or should be written into that SLA. And there are questions about the purpose of SLA. So though this topic in the book, in the study guide, is quite short, but it has extensive, it is asked extensively in the exam, and normally under the form of scenario, a question with scenario. So regard to solve this question, you need to have some kind of common sense and experience in your work. My advice for this part is that open the end of chapter 2. They have some common KPIs that which can be used in the contract. Read all the KPIs and try to remember some key KPIs like the defect rate or the satisfaction of or the responsiveness of the supplier, etc. Try to remember them and try to understand their use and their content. It will help you a lot in the exam. And finally, we are going to chapter 3. Regarding chapter 3, I see that there are many questions comes from outside of the book. And in this revision class, I want to spend more time in chapter 3 than the 2 previous. Okay, let's start with seemingly very simple area, which is express and implied terms. Regarding to this, actually, CIPS has many questions on this, and they don't simply ask whether express or implied term would prevail in some scenario. No, they don't have such question, but they have simple question and extremely complex question. For example, simple question we ask like this: which of the following would be the terms in the contract? Then they have some option for you, which include express and implied. So the answer would be express and implied, just so. But on the other hand, there are questions that you may never read. You may never read from anywhere. Sorry, from the book. And to prepare for that, I recommend you to read this legislation, UK legislation. I need to note here, you need to read UK legislation. Okay. Okay, I'm saying that to prepare for the exam, you need to read these legislations. Sale of Goods Act and Unfair Contract Terms Act in UK. And in the exam, the question on implied term tend to focus on these two documents. For example, they may ask you what is the principle of CIPS Level. Here, I write it here. Or what does mean by sale by description? Or in some very complex question, in some very, I believe that it would be a very hard question. They ask you, under which circumstance exclusion clause will be ineffective or cannot be applicable. Okay, so I will have to address those questions. First, about CIPS Level. This is a principle in common law in UK, in England. Sorry. The content is that if the buyer has options, then if he selects some kind of goods, then the seller is not responsible for the defects or the unfit of the good. Actually, this principle is very ancient. It dated from 1523, if I was not wrong. It dated from 1523, very old principle. And because it's old, then recently I see that from Self-Good Act in 1979. This principle is largely replaced by other principle. You should read the section 14 and 13 and 14 in the Self-Good Act. I will show you. Yeah, I'm reading Unfair Contract Term Act. This is Self-Good Act. You see that in section 14 of the act, the goods under the contract of sale should be of satisfactory quality. And what does it mean? It means that even when the buyer still has the options and he selects from the seller, then the seller is still liable to supply a goods that of satisfactory purpose. Sorry, the goods, the seller still has the obligation to supply a goods in satisfactory quality. Yeah, see this subsection 2 of section 14, where the seller sells goods in the course of a business. There's an implied term that the goods supplied under the contract are of satisfactory quality. It means the seller still has a duty to supply some goods of kind of fit for some for the general use. Let's come back to our lesson. And the KPIs principle still applicable in very few scenarios, like between the customer and customer, not consumer and consumer, not between business and business. You see that KPIs only now is limited to very few scenarios, and generally when we are conducting business with other business, we are procurement, we are the buyer, and we purchase from other business for our business, then this principle is not applicable. It's not often. This principle is often not applicable to procurement context. And what principle should prevail? If you purchase with a specification, then it will be called a sale by description, which means when you send the specification to the supplier, then they need to know what you need specifically, and that's called sale by description. And the supplier has the duty to supply the goods in according to that description. That's why specification is very important. Okay, that's all the content I want to talk about the Self-Goods Act. And about Unfair Contract Terms Act, it kind of quite hard and quite technically. Okay, come back here. It regulates that if we use standard term and condition, if the terms is exceedingly unfair for the other party, then the term would be ineffective. What does it mean? For example, sorry, let's take an example here. Okay, I will write here. For example, I'm a seller of leather, and in the contract, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm seller of the leather. In the contract of sale to a consumer, I exclude my liability arising from faulty product. And for example, the customer using my leather fall from it due to defect on the leather bar. Then the question is whether my exclusion of liability applicable in this scenario according to Unfair Contract Terms Act. What is your answer for this scenario? Okay, is there any other question? Sorry, is there any other answer to the question? Good. Okay, continue, please continue. Let's solve this scenario here. Okay, let's assume that assume that. Okay, let's add some more details here. Assume that I am a business in UK, and also the consumer is British national. Why I have to have this condition? Because we are talking about English law, so I need to ascertain by some other feature, by some details. And in the exam, I say that there would be a question. There will be 1 or 2 questions on Unfair Contract Term Act in the UK. Okay, I want to ask a participant about why you answer yes. SIP 2101, can you answer, can you turn on the mic and explain your answer?
I'm sorry, I had made a mistake. I thought like it was talking about the inclusion clause. So I went back to the module and I saw like the exclusion clause. It means that the supplier, the seller doesn't it excludes its responsibility, I think, yeah, from taking responsibility. So
Yeah,
I was wrong.
okay. So you still, let me sum up your answer. You still think that the exclusion clause applicable. Hello, can you turn on the mic and answer me?
Excuse me, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm summarize your answer. First, are you still thinking that the exclusion clause are still applicable?
No, it's not.
Yeah. Okay. So what is, why it's not? Why not?
Because the supplier has to take some responsibility for the damages that the customer had to incur because of the product defects.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, how about Katusilo? Could you explain your answer?
Hello.
Yeah, I can see. I can hear you.
Maybe I didn't understand the statement. I was telling myself maybe we're talking about the express term and the implies. That's why I said.
Okay. I cannot hear you very clearly. Can you repeat your answer?
I said maybe I didn't read the statement well because I was telling myself maybe we're talking about the express term and the implies terms.
Yes. Okay. That's a very correct approach. And I would like to show you the terms, the clauses, and the sections in that act. We are talking about Unfair Contract Term Acts. Okay, let's come back to section 2. Let me zoom in. Okay, read this passage.
Daniel?
Hello?
Are you still talking to Kato?
Yeah, you are still talking to me.
Okay.
So please read the passage I highlight here.
A person cannot, by reference to any contract term or to a notice given to persons general or to participate or to particular person exclude or restrict his liability for death or personal injury resulting from negligence.
Okay, so I think that the answer is very clear. Yeah, exclusion clause is not applicable here. First, because we are talking about the effect of express and implied term. And you know that if the implied term is written into a statute like Unfair Contract Term Act or other act in the UK, then if you are doing business in England or in Scotland, then the implied term in that case will overrule the express term. And the exclusion clause here is an express term, and because the implied term has prohibited from excludes the liability regarding the injury or death of the other person, then the exclusion clause would not be applicable here. It would be ineffective, and the seller is still liable for paying damage to the customer. I hope that my explanation is clear. And there are other terms in Unfair Contract Term Act, and I recommend you to read the act before sitting the exam. It would provide you some additional information about the effect of standard term and condition. This act is very important in English contract law, and it has implied term on the liability, on the limit of the express term. So read this act soon. I will send a link here if you want to read. Okay, that's all I want to talk with you about express and implied term. We have other topics and sessions. Another part of of chapter 3 that is very common in the exam is the use of modern forms of contract. Normally, the question tend to focus on three things. First is advantage of modern form contract, of using modern form contract. Second, the disadvantage of that action. And third, they ask about the applicable form contract in given scenario. And to solve the first and second type question, you only need to read the book. And to solve the third type question, you need to understand the application of these contract, of these modern form contract. For example, we know that FIDIC, FIDIC, and NEC are often used in construction, in civil engineering, in construction of civil building. And we also have IEE. This is a set of modern forms contract for the installation of mechanical plant. If you feel that the information in the book does not satisfy your need, then you may Google this name on the web. For example, I search for IE. Is that correct? IE, sorry. You can see here, it says very clearly that this modified contract for the design, supply, and installation of electrical, electronic, and mechanical plant. Also, here is very similar. In 1999 edition. Or I can search for NEC modified contract. Here you can see very clearly, these contracts are developed for engineering, building, and construction. How about feeding? Yeah, FIDIC has many type of form contract, and it divided into colors like green, red, yellow, etc. And generally, the focus here is about the contract for construction. Okay, modified contract has quite many questions in the exam. I remember, I see that it has about 5 or 6 questions. And normally these questions are very straightforward and very, so I hope that you can leverage the points here, maximize the point here. Okay, another topic on in this chapter 3 is contractor, and we only care about some very notable terms in the contract, like liability, indemnity, insurance, or liquidated damage and penalty. I only list three type term here because it is very relevant to the exam. For example, in insurance, you may need to understand different type insurance and their application. During the exam, they may have questions like they give you a scenario and ask you whether which type insurance would be the best suited one, or would be the best suitable one. And about liquidated damage, I remember during my exam there are 2 questions on this, and it stressed on the difference between liquidated damage and penalty. Remember that liquidated damage is a term in the contract which predefines the amount of damage payable to the innocent party. And to be valid, according to this, to the old doctrine, the doctrine from the case in 1915, liquidated damage to be valid must specify that it must be predefined, and the amount defined must be a true estimation of possible loss. And if the possible loss is substantially smaller than the liquidated damage, then that clause would be deemed as penalty, and such clause would be ineffective. Remember that actually currently there are case law overrule this principle, but CIPS still apply all rules. So we only need to understand that, we only need to remember that penalty is exceedingly, and liquidated damage is a true estimate of possible loss. That is the most substantial difference. Okay, and finally, we look at the different payment arrangement in the contract. The normal question, I list all the type of arrangement that is also listed in the study guide. And generally, the question tend to focus on the application of these arrangement. For example, they may give you a scenario and ask you, they give you a scenario and ask you which type of payment term would be the best, would be the most appropriate. Or for example, they give you a scenario about the contract for cleaning for 3 months, then whether fixed price contract would be the best, or the lump sum contract would be the best, etc. And please take a more focus on cost plus and cost reimbursement arrangement, because it kind of asks more than other type of pricing arrangement. About cost plus, there are two types of cost plus. Maybe actual cost plus a fixed fee, as this fixed fee would be the markup for the supplier, or the cost. We have the actual cost plus the final price would be equal to the actual cost plus the percentage of cost, and this percentage would be the markup of the supplier. In the exam, they may give you some example like we have this contract, and the price, the actual cost is for example $5,000, and the buyer agree to pay the supplier $2,000 on top of that, and they ask you what type of arrangement here. That type of question is quite simple. And a small note here. Also, like Kavit and Tor, CIPS also asked a question on quantum merit. What is this? This Latin phrase means that all he deserves, which means quantum merit is a principle in law about the compensation, about you need to compensate anyone who perform a service an equal price to his cost. So that is generally about quantum merit. Okay, that's all about the revision. And because we host this revision class for free, so if you want to support us, please purchase our practice question on Udemy and from our website for OR exam. For CI exam like L4M1 or L4M8. And by now, if you have any question, you may turn on the mic or type in the chat box, and I will try to answer all of your concerns. Okay, the participant name with Zoom user. Okay, I will come back to cost plus. Actually, it's very simple. They just name the different type arrangement. Cost plus generally is arrangement in which you pay the supplier the actual cost they incur to perform the work, and a markup. The actual cost is like if they purchase anything, or if they pay their worker anything, then you will pay them all because they are performing their service to you. And beside that, you need to pay them a markup. This markup can be a fixed fee, like an absolute number, like 1,000, 2,000, 1 million, 2 million, or 5 million in currency, in hard currency. And on the other hand, sometimes the buyer and the supplier may agree to another type of agreement. It means the actual cost plus a percentage of the cost. Like you agree to pay the supplier the actual cost plus 10% of the cost as the markup or as the profit to the supplier. It's very simple. No, Sherman, actually, in L4M3, there is no calculation question. The thing here is that you need to look at, you need to remember all the formula in like cost plus or other section like the liquidated damage. That's all. You don't need to calculate anything. Is there any other question? Okay, thank you, Shamin. Thank you for the question. Let's explain the difference between the KPIs and the target. Okay, let's come back to this chapter. Okay, KPI, as you know, is the key performance indicator. And indicator, and you need to measure. Then KPI here would be the would include something like its definition. For example, you want to measure the defect rate of the supplier. Then the KPI here is the defect rate, and you measure. And how to measure it? Like for the defect rate, you measure by the number of product or 40 product on the total number of delivered goods. So we have a percentage. That's the defect rate. Normally, key performance indicator already has these two content, and it set no target. And to measure whether to measure whether the supplier has performed well, then you would need to as a target. You need target. For example, the defect rate, the defect rate of the supplier is about only 5%. And you compare with your target, like you want the defect rate to be like 2%, then the supplier is performing under the target. And they need to address the problem. But the KPI itself is not the target. It's only it only has name and how to measure. We need to set the target differently. We need to look at our objective and set up a target relevant to that objective. Is that clear to you? Okay, very good. Is there any other question? So if you don't have any other question, then I can finish my session here. Okay, share link for the Sale Goods Act. Yeah, you have it. The Sale Goods Act.
Okay, sir.
Hello?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What conditions must a formal contract have to be valid?
Okay, okay, let's come back to chapter 1 and I will explain to you quite detail here. I'm trying my best to explain to you what happened to my slide. Okay, Kyle. Sorry, my PowerPoint is quite buggy now. I need to write it other way. Okay, you're asking about the condition for the contract to be valid. So I list it here. We know that we need offer and accepted. And when we have an offer, valid offer and valid acceptance, then we will have an agreement. But this agreement can be enforceable or unenforceable. What do you mean by enforceability? Enforceable means that when a party does not perform as is said in the agreement, then the other party can sue it in a competent court. And the court, if they find that the other party has breached the contract, the other party must pay the damage or perform the contract in due diligence by specific performance. And if the if the agreement is unenforceable, then when a party does not perform as it said, then the court cannot force them to pay the damage or to perform the contract. that is unenforceable. And to make an agreement to be enforceable, then we need three other conditions. First is the consideration. In English law, to have a valid contract, there must be consideration, which is the something in exchange for the other. All the contract in English law must be bilateral, must be two-way. We also need the intention to be bound. The contract must show some intention to be bound by the parties, or it will be enforceable. And in business context, generally, the agreement would be thought as it has intention to be bound, except the parties said otherwise. Saying otherwise. For example, you know that in memorandum of understanding, the parties may say that this memorandum, this MOU, does not bind the party, so it cannot be enforceable in a court of law. And finally, we need to have capacity. We need capacity. Capacity here is the ability to understand and act as a reasonable person. The people who lack capacity may be minor, or the people with mental disorder, etc. So to have a valid contract in English law, you need to have all these 5 factors. Is my explanation clear?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, I have another one.
Yes, please.
It says list 3 elements of a contract. So here as well, do we talk about like the offers, acceptance, and considerations as well, or something else?
Yes. Could you speak slower? I cannot hear the rest of your question.
Oh, I was saying the other question is, it says list 3 elements of a contract. So my
Yes.
question is, even on this one,
Yes.
are we going to still talk about the offer, acceptance, considerations, and all that, or are we talking about something else here?
Yes, you are doing some assignment and they ask you about the elements of contract. So these 5 elements are enough. Don't need to have other thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other questions? So I think that I can finish my revision class here, and I wish that all of you will have successful July exam in L4M3. Thank you for attending our class.
Hi, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Before you go, are you going to have more revision classes?
Yes, of course. I will have L4M1 class next week.
Okay, okay, no problem. I will get the same link from the same person.
Not the same link. Yeah, not the same link. Not the same link. I will create and send you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if I have your mobile number.
Can I put it in the chat box?
Yes, yes. Okay. Please
Okay.
put it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello. Kindly explain to me the 5 porters, 5 forces. I want to know how do they add value to the.
Unfortunately, both the 5 forces are not fall into the scope of L4M3. But if you want to know, I still I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to help you. Yeah. Okay. Now, okay. My presentation is very lucky.
Okay, can I ask another question if they don't fall within this module?
Yes, please.
So we should only ask about the M3 only.
Yes, I prefer to answer the question regarding M3. And if you want to explanation about other module, then chat with us on WhatsApp, and I will answer you. I will try my best to answer you all your questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask you later.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone has other question?
Sorry, are you?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry. Are you going to have any class for M2?
Yes, we receive a lot of requests for the weeks before the exam, but I'm planning to accommodate all of your requests. But you know that we have a lot of requests on L5, L6, sorry, M6 and M7. So
Okay.
I'm thinking about how to balance between the needs of the students.
Okay, thank you.
If we have any other class, then we will notify you on WhatsApp. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you think that my revision class is helpful for preparation for the exam? Okay. If you don't have any other question, I think that I should end it here, and I wish to see you again in other session.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hope that my revision class is helpful for you, and with that, all of you will pass your L4M3 soon. The class, this revision class will be uploaded on YouTube on Evocurement channel. So if you want to rewatch, we will upload the link onto our website, and you may rewatch from anytime.
Thank you.
And now I will end this class, and see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.